Okay, great. So the recording just started. Thanks everybody who's listening in. Jason, actually, would you like to do an introduction for us first before we get started?
Sure, just for the plan in general or us on the call here. Maybe a little
Sure.
bit of both.
Yeah.
So good evening, everyone. Today is Wednesday, December 3rd. Time is just after 6 p.m. This is the kind of open house slash information session regarding the city's hazard mitigation plan. This plan is to address concerns over any hazards that might face the city, such as extreme weather, um, acts of God, anything like that, and how the city can better prepare for those hazards. With me on this call is Aaron Hirok and Elizabeth Haney from Weston and Sampson, who are the two planners looking to or helping me with getting this plan together. Um, Here to just give a short presentation about the current status of the plan and the current action items that we're looking to put forward as part of the plan. There are going to be other opportunities to engage with this plan as this moves forward to eventually city council and public hearing with them. So stay tuned and keep a look at the community calendar for any upcoming events related to the hazard mitigation plan if this is something that you would want to attend in the future. But with that, I'll pass it over to Elizabeth.
Great. Thank you, Jason. Erin, you can go to the next slide. So just to give folks an overview, what we'll be going over tonight, we just did a welcome and introduction, and I'll be giving a bit of an overview of the hazard mitigation plan process as well as where we are in our schedule. And then Erin will be taking over to discuss the draft actions that we've drafted based on committee and community feedback as well as a data review. We'll then discuss next steps, and if we have attendees, we have an opportunity for a public discussion, either digitally or in person with Jason. So you can go to the next slide, Erin. And so we already had an introduction. That's our core project team. This slide is about the core purpose of hazard mitigation plans. So these are strategic documents that operate under a framework that is put out by FEMA. They are important to do because they unlock federal funding for the city of Gardner to be able to access, and they also help the city just think in advance in terms of preparing for significant natural hazard events and disasters. And so when you look at the HMP process and when you look at what is in a HMP when you open it up, there's sort of four key elements. And so one is looking at the risks related to hazards, and then identifying mitigation strategies related to those after looking at what your community assets are. And a core piece of this is getting community engagement about what community members view as the most important natural hazards to address. And hazard mitigation plans need to be updated on a regular schedule in order to continue to be eligible for that federal funding. So this is Gardner's first sole hazard mitigation plan. Previously, Gardner had been part of the Montechusett region, which had a regional hazard mitigation plan. You can go to the next slide, Erin. And so this is actually the roadmap to the chapters of the plan that sort of lead us down the path of how we look at the things I just discussed. And so you can see we kind of do an introduction to the plan. We plan for public engagement in our planning process. We do an asset of what assets there are in the community to be mindful for when we're thinking about what hazards might occur. We look at what are the vulnerabilities. So when we look at our assets and our hazards, what's that matrix look like for how, say, a winter storm might interact with locations for vulnerable seniors. Our fifth chapter is about community capabilities. So those are the activities and the staff and the programs at the city level that the city is currently undertaking to be prepared in advance of natural hazard events. And then we use all those evaluations and research and community input to craft actions. And so that's the purpose of the meeting we have tonight, is to discuss the actions that have been drafted from these previous parts of the planning process. You can go to the next slide, Erin. And so in terms of our community engagement plan, we've had 3 previous community meetings, and this is our 4th, where we'll be discussing the actions. And the final kind of community engagement opportunity will be the presentation of the plan to the City Council. And on the right side of our screen, you can see FEMA and MEMA, the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency, encourage cities and towns to involve several different stakeholders in the planning process, both in community meetings and in kind of direct communication with planning staff about what their thoughts are on the hazard mitigation plan process. And so Jason has been in touch with many folks in the city, getting their input on the actions that you'll see tonight and the overall plan. You can go to the next slide, Erin. And so you can see that, again, this is sort of what we've completed now. We are just coming up on the edge of 2026, but we just have a few steps left. After this meeting, we'll be looking to write the last couple chapters and submit the plan for approval to MEMA in 2026. You can go to the next slide, Erin. And Erin is actually going to take over to discuss the actions that have been drafted so far.
Thanks, Elizabeth. So I'm going to jump into the mitigation actions. So with the previous planning efforts, we reviewed them as a part of the mitigation action process to ensure continuity and building off existing strategies. In particular, actions from the Montechusett Regional HMP, which was released in 2015, and the MVP Action Plan 2021 were incorporated, providing a foundation of proven and community-supported measures. Additionally, public input through the Hazard Experience Survey was incorporated as their own actions. And I also want to specifically note that with the Montechusett Regional HMP, we had an opportunity to meet with the steering committee to decide what actions to move forward ahead on, as well as those that we should drop for this HMP specifically as they weren't relevant or maybe completed. So to prioritize actions, we use the Stapley method, and this is recognized by FEMA for hazard mitigation plans. But essentially, it evaluates each of the proposed actions through a series of questions based on social, technical, administrative, political, legal, and economic and environmental criteria. So then we took those scores and ranked them into 3 categories to prioritize. So this was high, medium, and low. We had 9 actions that were high. For medium, we had 7, and then 4 we had for low. And I just wanted to highlight a little bit about some of the considerations and common themes that were coming across from all the plans, as well as the public input. We noticed that flooding and ice storms were the most widely mentioned and talk about hazards. Also came up with our hazard discussion. Specifically, the 2008 ice storm highlighted vulnerabilities and concerns about future events. There was also a need for more local assessment of vulnerable critical assets in flood-prone areas. Came up a lot about doing further studies on specific areas within Gardner to understand a little bit more about maybe how flooding is occurring in the area. And then additionally, just a greater need for educational and awareness opportunities for property owners and residents on risks, and then also actions that they can take themselves. And then this slide just showcases the tiny URL, which you can pull up for the survey. We also have a QR code at the end of the presentation.
I'll make sure that these links are also included in the description of the recording.
Absolutely. So the next slides are divided into hazard buckets. We have the most amount of actions for flooding, and then the other slides are grouped into different hazards based on extreme storms or other hazard types. I'm just going to give a brief overview as there's a lot of information here. And again, this is addressed within the survey. But basically, we divided these into different priorities. I think the special attention should be on the responsible entity here. If you were a part of any of these entities and feel like there's maybe an action that you should overtake or considering another action to pass on to another department, we'd be happy to change that and update it as needed. But again, generally with flooding, as I mentioned, there was a lot of discussion about understanding where flooding is occurring. Obviously, we have FEMA flood hazard data that's available for most municipalities and can give a certain level of detail, but I think understanding, what specific culverts may need to be replaced and prioritized. Also, if there's more focus on stormwater management studies, there's also discussion about dams and conducting more studies about dam removal or having spillways for a specific dam. So just considering, again, how we can think about flooding at different scales here as well, along with also looking at one of the actions, action number 13, is creating a downtown livability and connectivity vision plan. So again, thinking at a broader scale of how we can connect flooding to planning efforts. And then these actions are for extreme hazard events. So these we're looking at a range of hazard types. Extreme hazards can be defined as a lot, but some of these actions were developing a priority hazard tree and utility corridor management plan, looking at emergency response and road treatment operations, and also considering awareness of fire risk reduction, as well as looking at warming and cooling centers and identifying needed upgrades. And then finally, we have a all hazards slide, as some of these actions go beyond just a couple of hazards and can actually help address a lot. And these are super powerful, and that's why I think they end up being high priority. So this is looking at educating the public through local radio and TV stations, as well as, I know we expanded upon this to include social media, as the original regional HMP didn't include that. Utilizing interactive mapping applications from the Montechusett Regional Council, and then also conducting a community needs assessment related to emergency needs and communication networks, enhancing the city's emergency communication and public alerting capabilities, and then also implementing recommendations that have come up in previous plans. So being a catch-all of some of the plans I talked about with the Montechusett one, as well as MVP and any other actions that are relevant from other local plans. So for next steps, feedback from today's meeting afterwards will be used to prioritize actions. Again, the survey is a great tool for us to understand what people are feeling in regards to prioritizing and any comments. And then we're planning on submitting this to MEMA sometime in January. And then additionally, the final plan development and presentation to the City Council is expected to occur around March after the MEMA review. And then this opens up the public forum side of today's presentation. We have the slide, again, that has all of our information here, but there's a QR code that should take 10 to 15 minutes to complete, as well as a little explanation on what HMPs are and where we are with Gardners. And then that concludes the meeting.
So if there are any comments, questions, I'll include my email as well in the description for this. So for any comments regarding the prioritization of the action items that Aaron just went over, for any incoming hazards, and if you're looking to complete the survey as well and want a link for that, it's included, should be included down below, but you can also reach out to me if that's something that you want directly sent over. So if there are any other questions, feel free to reach out, either myself, or I can direct the question to Aaron or Elizabeth, and we can get that answer to you shortly. We want to get as much public feedback and engagement with this as possible, so we make sure that this is a plan that really meets the specific needs of Gardner, now that we're getting our own hazard mitigation plan rather than being a part of a regional one. So that's only done through public engagement, public feedback. So as we look towards the next step of being city council approval, we want to make sure that prior to that, as much public comment is incorporated into this plan as possible. So please reach out. Please reach out to myself. Call the planning department, whichever way that is easiest for you. And we look forward to hearing from you. But I appreciate Aaron and Elizabeth for going through the full presentation. And with that, I think we can call it there. Thank you both.
Thank you, Jason.